we will start with the frontal, okay? So the first thing I want you to do is give yourself the best circle you can, okay? Nice and easy, okay? Smooth, right? Drop pretty large. Give yourself room and space for this, okay? So go ahead and draw yourself a nice large circle as such. If you do like I do, I don't draw it perfectly the first time. Sometimes I slow down on the chalkboard, but with this I have to go several times until I see what what looks the most correct. So I kind of modified it out here, kind of continuous edge style. You're going to take a straight line across over here, horizontally. You're going to take a straight line across over here, okay? Again, we're starting with the cranium first, right? This is just the skull without the jaw, okay? I'm trying to draw heavily enough so that you can see this, and I can draw a little heavier. So eventually, my hope is for you that you'll see ratios and fractions really easily and quickly, and you don't have to do all the measuring and stuff that I'm going to show you how to do, right? We're going to start first with a half measurement on this, say. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and roughly half and half here. So I'm going to get back from that and just kind of give myself a few sketchy lines. I'll measure it. I'll drop it down, see how close it is. If I think it's good, we're good, okay? So give yourself a halfway mark. Okay. So what we're going to do off to the right here, we're going to give ourselves a vertical line. And again, I'll try to label this pretty dark so you can see that. So this is our 1/2. So what we're going to do from the 1/2, right? We're going to take the top first and we're going to divide that in 2/3. Trust me, it's going to work out, okay? So you have to imagine how this is going to stack up in thirds. So the first thing I'm going to do is just create kind of a gentle mark there. I'm going to come down, create a gentle mark here. I'm going to measure them and see if I can fit all of those in, 1, 2, 3, right? If it doesn't work, do it again. So roughly 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So we're doing that in the top. And for some of you, this may be something you've already done before and you're like, oh man, I wish we'd go faster. But it was something I didn't learn until I got to college. Okay, so here we've got 1, 2, 3. We're gonna do the same thing in the bottom, okay? So from our half to our bottom mark, we're gonna go, and we're just approximately breaking that into thirds, right? So what that's gonna do for us, it's gonna give us 6 equal areas on there, right? So by dividing that in half first, it's easier for me to make 6 areas rather than go, oh, okay, I'll divide this into 6. It's very difficult for me to do that. Okay, what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take this mark right here next to the 1, this one right on the 6, okay? We're gonna lightly bring those across as parallel as possible, right? Okay, so that means we've cut a little off the top and a little off the bottom. So essentially, we've marked out 1/6 here and 1/6 here. What happens when we add 1/6 and 1/6? A third. So now we have said, okay, we've blocked off a third of the face or a third of the cranium, right? So with the Loomis method, we need a ratio for the plane of the side of the head and what that relates to in terms of the whole cranium, right? So we have to figure out how much of the side of the head that we're going to, quote, chop off on the side, right? So this guideline here gives us a pretty handy measurement for how we can skinny up the face, right? So what we do from there is effectively we bring in some marks from the top of this to this. And I don't draw a straight line, I kind of draw like a curved line. Remember, I'm thinking about my temple, okay? how my temple then goes to my cheekbone, how that then comes back to my jawbone. So I'm kind of carving it like this, right? So I'm going to do that same thing on this side. And what I'm doing is I'm just carving that in essentially where these intersect with my cranium, okay? Okay, so one thing I want you to remember is that the side plane of any portrait that you're drawing is always going to be roughly 2/3 of the whole cranium, okay? And that'll matter later when we're drawing this in a more dimensional way, right? So 2/3 of the side of my cranium should be flattened, and that's kind of what we're doing here. So again, this is frontal, okay? So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a symmetry line, right? Our symmetry line, the thing that divides our face in half, goes between our eyebrows, hits our nose, splits our lips, right? So we're going to look at what we think is about halfway here. And we're going to go ahead and draw a line pretty much straight up and down right on top of that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to drop in a brow line, okay? So our brow line, not our eye line, and this is really important because when you think about that brow, how it protrudes this way, okay, as a profile, that is really important to that side of the head. If this is 1/6, this is 1/6, then a total of that is 1/3. What we have left here, what do we have left? 2/3, right? Okay, in here, 2/3. All we got to do to divide that in half is go 1/3, 2/3. We can actually take our 1/2 mark and bring it straight across. So the reason I'm starting with this is because this is kind of hard to illustrate in other ways. So technically, we've taken this cranium and we've divided it into thirds, but it's distributed differently than we think of, right? So this basically together is 1/3, this together is 1/3, this together is 1/3, right? So we've distributed those thirds up here. Again, we're not going to go through all this with everything we do, but I want you to see how this works, right? Okay, so some other general things to think about. When we map out the face, we don't map anything but the brow, the nose, and the chin. From there, we can make other measurements, right? So think about it like this. From the brow to the nose is 1/3, okay? Yeah? Okay, so then from our nose to our chin is going to be 1/3 as well. So like this measurement here, which is going to be our brow, this becomes our nose. We have to measure that, and then we come down here and we make a mark. That is where we protrude the chin. Remember, this was the cranium before, okay? We have to add a jaw down here, okay? So, brow, and this is the tip of the nose. And then I just took that same dimension, boom, right here, chin. Okay, not shin collet, chin. Okay, so our ears are going to have to exist between the brow and the nose, right? On the sides. Remember when I was talking about that? So that's going to be on the side of the head right here. This is like our temple, right? So we know that ear is going to roughly be in this location. See, like that even like feels way too big for me. But I'm going to drop it in about here. Again, it's kind of a generic face thing. Now, below our ears, right, you have some bones. You have some bony structures behind your ears, right? Now, those bony structures you have behind your ears, then you have this concave area, right? Now, if we look at a skull, we know that this is where the jaw begins, okay? So that tells me that we need to start the jaw right in here, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to come down from either side like that to get the straight aspect of the jaw. Then we have to create a curved aspect for the jaw. So I'm going to curve it a little bit here. I'm going to curve it a little bit here. Then I'm going to create my chin shape using my guideline. And of course, depending on different gender differences and things like that, that will change. Let me take a look at what we got back here. So now that we're at this point, try to imagine if you drew your eyes right on this line. Would that look right? I mean, that's too high, right? That's one of those things that I saw a lot with students, right? That's why I emphasize that this is your brow, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come in here and create what I call an ocular cavity. When I do this, I very much think about the shape of the opening of the eye for the skull. And when I talk about that, I talk about this hollow area. This is the ocular cavity. That's the shape. Brow's up here, right? So when we do that, then we want to get it pretty equidistant on the other side. What we could do is we could measure this out, come over here and do this, but that moves it over too much because this is the opening, it's not the eye, right? The eye is actually going to exist in the middle of this. It's going to be about like right in here kind of thing. So I should be able to do that, start this on the other side. So I'm going to get myself just a basic, because again, I'm not too worried about facial features at this point. I'm just going to create an ocular cavity in there. What I usually like to do is kind of go with real expressive eyebrows in here just to emphasize, once again, that's the brow, okay? As far as the shape of the head, this is something that's carving away. But we're not cutting all of this away because, again, we see some stuff back here, right? Okay? Like when you look at the top of a head, like this would be a viewpoint looking down from the top of the head. Your brow would be in this area. Your ears would exist in this area. Your nose would come out here. You would see some cheekbones in here. So we have to have that angled like this. And that means that we would see some of this, okay? So usually what I do is I come in here and I go, okay, well, how much of that am I going to see? And I have to modify that. And it's going to be different for everybody, right? But this is a good area that kind of tells me that that's basically where my temples are going to go. On the sides. Okay, so if this is the tip of my nose, I usually start with a ball of a nose here. And again, I'm just like very much drawing generic features. We don't worry about this just yet. We worry about organization of it first, okay? So for the mouth, basically between your nose and your chin, it's a halfway mark, okay? And that's the opening for the mouth. So it's not gonna be this far down. It's going to be up a bit. So when I look at this, I think, okay, I might be able to use this kind of a thing here, as long as it's fairly equal, okay? We know that the middle of this dictates how wide to go. Our lips go in this area. Okay. Now usually there's a hairline thing, you know, unless you're me, which I did shave my head today, but I decided, you know, that I'd save that for a later surprise. You could draw me today if you want to. I can't sit still long enough, so never mind. Usually, your hairline's going to come down right about here. Just kind of depending, right? And then our hair has to come off. A lot of people think, oh man, there's not enough space up there. The hair does come off the head. That's another mistake I see that students make pretty consistently. Like, they'll try to draw the hair like going up to that and stopping. But you all have some volume in your hair, right? Some of you more than others. You have way more volume than I do. So we have to include that extra space in there, right? Okay, so this would be if this person is looking straight on with us, okay? Like straight on. So what do we do if this person's looking up or down, right? So again, with frontal, we start with the same thing. All we have to do is adjust the eyes and the ears. Okay, so if I'm looking down from your perspective looking at me, that's going to put the tip of my ears higher, right, than my brow. If I look up, it's going to go the other way around. My brow goes up, my ears are here, and then you're going to foreshorten the chin. So something to think about there, yes? Okay, moving on. So that's frontal.